I don't want to offend anybody, but it's more than taking the medications from the pharmacies, pharmaceutical medication. I could go on a lot about that. We did a program a couple of months ago called Diabetes Undone. We did it down at the hospital, and only one visitor came. I think there's you two and myself, and then one visitor came, and she really enjoyed it. And she said she wanted to come to this, so she was notified, but she didn't show up. That's okay. Things come up, and life goes on. Let's see something else. So anyway, that's why we do this type of program. 8 Laws of Health is on the DVD that's in there now, and it came when I bought this Diabetes Undone program. I think it's a $200 thing that I got. I got it when I first moved here because I wanted to see us get involved. If you missed any recipes, I had this walnut olive burger. I had that for my supper tonight. It was really good. And I mixed it with, I put a little bit of Veganese on it. Anybody familiar with Veganese? Does that mean no? They sell it at Dillon's, and there's no egg in it. So it's egg-free mayonnaise, and it's rather tasty. So anyway, what we're going to do tonight, I think, you want to see the video first? Or do you want me to do this demonstration first? Because I'm only going to do one demonstration tonight, because she's going to do the demonstration. She's going to do the demonstration on, and what I have here is lemon cheesecake, dairy-free. And I didn't want to bring it down. I made it at home today, and I said, no, I better leave this at home. Because it is so good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really rich, but I did bring it down. It's in the refrigerator.
Oh, I was going to say, if you want to go ahead and do the presentation and put it in the freezer, in the refrigerator, and then we could watch that. But if you've already got one in
Oh, I've already got one in there. It's been done. In fact, she'll say on here, let it sit in the refrigerator for 8 hours. And we didn't have time, or overnight. But we didn't have time. She also said, or
so
you can
we eat all that, you're taking this one home.
Yeah. If we eat all what?
The one that's in the ice.
No, that's the one I'm taking home, right?
No.
No?
No, because it'll be ready to eat.
It is. It's already ready to eat.
Yeah.
There was a little left in the blender that I used. I have a bigger blender that I used it in, and I did everything I could to get all that stuff out. Boy, is it good! So let's go ahead and listen to this is the 8 Laws of Health. It's on this DVD, which came with my Diabetes Undone. If you have Adventist Review TV, you'll see an area there for life and health. In fact, that's one of the things I passed out the other night. Did I? I think I did, didn't I? Didn't I pass out a list of things you could find on the internet?
No.
Barbara O'Neill, anybody? You're familiar with Barbara O'Neill? You're familiar with her? Yeah, she's an Adventist.
Yeah, she's great.
She's very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where I put it. Anyway, you can go and find life and health on the internet. Okay. You can also go to, anybody familiar with Physicians Committee? No. It's a vegan program, and they're really strong. They got a lot of good things to share. Physicians Committee, Life and Health, Adventist Review TV. Adventist Review TV, you can get that on the internet. They'll have listed their recipes and demonstrations similar to what
And
we're
you said
seeing.
it's on Roku.
And that's on Roku.
Roku.
Yeah. But it's also on the internet. So if you just go in on the internet and type in Adventist Review TV, it'll come up. And there's a whole bunch of stuff there on health and religion, things like that. So also tonight, if you'd like, we have some books over here. One is called Steps to Christ. This has been my favorite book for many, many years. I've read it several times, and they're free. They're over here on the table. We also have something here for free Bible guides on prophecy. Prophecy comes to life. And the cards will be right over here, so you're welcome to help yourself. And before you leave tonight, I'd like to ask you to fill out one of these, but I'll do that at the end. This is a survey of how much you enjoyed the program, and say whatever you want. okay? So let's go ahead and watch the video, and then I'll do this. This is called cheese, pimento cheese. So I have a jar of pimentos with it. Easy. It's easy to make. It's really easy to make, and it has a cooking. So I'll do this after we watch the video. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, ready to go?
You gotta turn the lights on.
Okay. Let's do it.
I'm going to show you how to make a no-cook raw cheese sauce that's totally plant-based and totally delicious, and you won't believe it's not cheese. It calls for 1 cup of our raw cashews, 1 cup of our water, 1/2 teaspoon of our sea salt, 3 tablespoons of our lemon juice, 1 clove of garlic, 1 tablespoon of onion flakes,
Okay, this is the one I'm going to be demonstrating a little bit later. I'm going to fast forward this if you don't mind.
and I like to use either red bell pepper, sun-dried tomato, or you can use regular pimentos for this, but just something to give it that color. But the sun-dried tomato gives it that extra
Yeah, and so does the,
special.
I need the light on again.
Okay, so go ahead and just put everything into the blender. You're gonna blend it until it's
I
and
checked this
about
out
3 minutes,
today,
you're gonna have your cheese sauce.
and
So our cashews are a great nut because
Okay.
they blend so well and they are replacing our traditional milk that you would put in a cheese sauce.
okay, stop it. I'm sorry for this delay. I thought I had it on the right one. This is not the right one.
And the water just makes it nice and creamy.
We have to see if I can go back here. It's coming. It's coming. Oh, boy. Well, you guys can talk while I'm getting this together.
Sometimes those things are kind of hard to.
I know.
Back it up for whatever.
Yeah, especially when you're my age. There now. Okay, it's cooking raw cheese sauce. That's the first one. And so I want to go here.
You wanna go down?
I don't know.
Ask the doctor, additive foods,
No.
from plant to plate.
Maybe one.
7 psychological sins.
No, that's not it. That's not it either, but see if I can. I was down here, I got it set up, and I said, good, it'll work. And isn't this life?
Yes, absolutely.
We go on and it's down.
Temperance.
What? Did I do something?
I said temperance.
That's right, I feel cool now. Okay, let's see if we can, bring it down, here. Okay. I'm gonna push that one.
I was kind of enjoying watching him cut that onion.
You wanna watch that?
So you go where you wanna go.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna bring it out, and put it back in again. I heard them say, I don't think that's it, cream cheese. It's in the refrigerator if you wanna look at it. Loading, that's a good sign. New flake from last stop, no. Sure you don't want me to sing?
Do you know how to work that thing, Joe? That cut down?
Do you know how to work this?
You might have to pull it all the way out and put it back in.
Well, that's what I did already.
Oh,
Are you sure you're on the right disc?
Yeah, oh yeah, this is the disc I put in there earlier,
Okay.
and it played it. So I said, no, I'll put it at the beginning and then I'll start it up again. Okay, let's do this. We'll open it up. Close it again. Anybody have any
It's
questions?
loading, it's loading.
I know, that's what I said before too.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions on anything? Anybody have questions? Anybody can do all the talking? Okay.
Well,
I may have to.
Jody,
Mm-hmm.
I have some questions for you.
There you
Okay.
go. That's good.
How does your program work, and what is your fee
Okay.
cover?
And yeah, that's what I was
How
gonna
do you
cover at
do-
the end, yeah. So, let me stand up there
Yeah.
Whatever
come on.
you wanna do.
while you're trying, cause like I said,
Whatever is more comfortable for you.
well, that way I'm on camera, so.
You're on camera? Are you taking video?
Yeah.
But with it, it's okay. Alright, I think this- Okay, so today I was gonna cover like, how do we emotionally want to take care of our health? Cause sometimes it's like, oh, you know, it's easier to, you know, eat a bag of chips or whatever, you know,
yeah.
sometimes.
Don't go to the doctor.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm gonna be talking about today, but at the end I was gonna talk about, okay, so how can we connect with what I do? So this is actually my anniversary. I realize I've been doing this for 19 years, which seems kind of strange. It's been that long, but that's how long I've been interested in doing this, and I've been working with clients to help people. And I work with people remotely, so I work with people all over the world, from Australia to England, but all over the U.S., Canada. So it's just, I work on the phone, and so people contact me about having a health issue. It could be digestive, it could be sleep, it could be just many different health modalities that they're having. But it could also be, pets, children. I've even worked with horses and birds and dogs. We've also, in some ways, even worked with plants, because plants can, they're a living thing, and we can find out what nutrient they're deficient on.
Right.
And I may not know everything, but if someone is a farmer and they're wanting to say, okay, this is not thriving, and say, okay, well, what do you normally give them for nutrients? And we can test, okay, no, it's a little too high in that, or this, what's bothering it, or is there a bug that's bothering it, or something like that. So there's several, lots of things you can do. But anyway, so I have a Facebook group, and it's called Chronic Illness, Finding the Root Cause. And if you know about Facebook, a lot of times what they do is they create these groups that you can be in, and you can learn a lot from that group. Like Barbara O'Neill has a Facebook group. And so I share lots of videos on there, I share lots of information, and that's a good way to just connect. And kind of with Barbara O'Neill, you kind of get more ideas on how this modality can help you, because sometimes people go on the lost cause. I talked to somebody today that she can't eat anything but sugar because she does, the taste from after having COVID really bothers her taste buds. And so that would be something that's kind of way out of the box. All the doctors have said, oh, I don't know, it's kind of in your head. I'm sorry, I have no idea what to do with you. And so those are the kind of cases that I work with, because it's like I am looking at the body and finding out what organs, glands, and tissues are involved in that issue. It's the olfactory area of her body and brain. And then I find out what's impacting them, what toxins and pathogens. And so when we find that, then we're able to help her figure out what to add or subtract, or what the body has not been able to clear, like a bite or a food or in that case, the spike protein, in order to help her body get well.
So she thinks she can only eat sugar?
Yes, because everything tastes really bad to her, especially garlic,
Except for sugar.
except for sugar.
Well, garlic tastes bad anyway.
This is right, yeah, but for her, this is all
Well,
pleasant.
yeah, just raw garlic
Yeah,
is a little funny.
yeah. And so that's one way. Another way of getting in touch with me is I have a YouTube channel, and it's Jody Colgrove. And so that I share tons of videos on everything from the best way to naturally get, let's say, stains out of your clothes instead of using harsh chemicals of Tide and Bounce and Gain, to using more natural things. And so I share from that to all kinds of health stuff. All right, so the third way is that was gonna say, if you specifically want a video like I've talked about, like kidney stones and gallstones, fungal information on how to get rid of fungal infections, and also, I'm gonna be going over a trauma treatment today, and so that would be another way to, something I could send you. So if you want that, you can give me your email and I can write it down.
Oh, that's this, I'm sorry, that was the unread.
Okay, so I got 2 more points here. So, so the fourth way is that I have these kind of workshops every month, and typically I do them free, and I do them on Zoom, and so they're an hour, and I pick different subjects, whether it's chronic illness, menopause, sleep, mast cell activation, which is, like runaway inflammation in the body. So I'm always picking a subject and kind of going over that in a monthly Zoom, and that's free. And that is on my YouTube, but you'd sign up for it because we do it on Zoom. And I have thought about doing them in person, so now I'm in the process of still moving and unpacking. So eventually I'll have a place that I can do that. But anyway, so that's a free monthly that I offer to learn more about health subjects. I've got 2 courses that I've loaded up on a platform that you can watch and so basically go through. And so one is on sleep, and so I feel that, okay, well, I'll start with the health one first. In other words, there's 5 areas of health, just kind of like your New Start. It's air, water, food, sleep, and emotions. It's kind of that same idea as New Start. And so I kind of go over each one of those, why it's so important to have really good air, good something to eat, and have that kind of thing. So I go over that, and so that's a class. It's $47, and so I go through and I kind of talk about the different areas and why those are important and what you can do more in depth of what we've done just from this 3-day kind of free. So I can give you the link for that. And then the other course that I've just loaded in is I do a deep dive on one of those, which is sleep. And so I really, we talked a little bit of like if you wake up between 1 and 3, it's your liver. If you wake up between 3 and 5, it's your lung. And so I go more in depth with that and talk more about different things that you can do to get a better night's sleep. Because that really, as you get older, that really starts getting impacted. And so I talk more about that. So that one is a $70 or $97, and it's just a class of videos that you watch to help you get the information and start making those changes. So that's another way to get a hold of me and to learn more about this work. If you're wanting to do a one-on-one session with me, then what we do is we have you fill out a client session request and some information, just like when you go to a doctor, they say, okay, well, what's your symptoms, what have you had, that kind of stuff. We need that information because it gives us a picture of what's happening with your health. And we can see how things connect, that you may not recognize the dots and how they connect. And so when I work with people, first-time clients, we give a discount. And so to work one-on-one for 60 minutes of session, and I record the sessions, it's $300. And so I'm giving you a good baseline on what's going on with your symptom that you're wanting to deal with, and what you can do about it to get your health back on track. And so you'll come away with knowing, oh, that's what's going on. Now I know what the steps I need to take. You have energy to be able to do it, and then you can start implementing that. And then we kind of have you check in every so often with us to kind of see how it's going. If you have any sludge die-off is what they call it. When you have those kind of symptoms, like you feel like you have a cold or maybe the flu, sometimes your body is so full of toxins it can't get out. And so we work on helping you clear those detox. Not everybody detox, just kind of depends on how much, how your body does.
Yeah.
And so if you're wanting to know more about how I do that modality, I offer a 15 minutes free one-on-one that we can just meet over Zoom, and I give you a little bit more explanation about how, when you have symptoms, that's the filling over the bucket of kind of like your body. In other words, if you have headache and digestive issues, that's the symptoms. And so most people are trying to get rid of symptoms. They give you a pill to get rid of the symptom. They cut it out, burn it out, or chop it out, and that doesn't solve the root cause of what's going on. And so what we do is find out what is that root cause. And so we not only get rid of the symptoms, but we're also lowering your symptom bucket. In other words, finding out what are all the things adding to that. It could be, stress. It could be stuff you're eating. It could be, bites and stings and things that punctured the skin. It could be any of those things. And so we have a whole list of things we go through. So that's what we're finding is getting rid of symptoms, getting rid of that bucket so that you're no longer overreacting to what's happening and why you're getting symptoms taken care of. So finding the root cause. And so I go over more in depth with that. And that's, like I said, a 15-minute free, to go over that on Zoom. So we can,
Well, you said something about thyroid.
okay?
So can you get people to where they don't have to take thyroid medication any longer?
It just depends on the specific person, but yeah, there's a lot of people that we say, okay, well, what's causing that to have an issue? And so, there could be radiation that they're picking up, it could be mold. So yeah, we look at, say, okay, what is causing that to be an issue? Sometimes it does test to take a little bit of Synthroid, for thyroid kind of stuff, but we really try to see if there's all the other things we can do to put it back into balance instead of having to take that. All right, so you
Yeah.
ready?
And Guy brought me home one of your cards. So
Pardon me? Oh,
he
he brought
brought me
home-
home one of your cards, so
Yeah.
I do have one of your cards.
Yeah.
And I will probably take a picture of it and send it to my little sister in Florida.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, I work with people all over, and
Yeah.
We just find out what are the toxins, what are you eating, what are you inhaling, what are you putting on your skin, what has punctured the skin that may be an issue, bites, stings,
Yeah, I'm a true believer that your whole body is an organ,
mhm.
and you use those harsh chemicals like Tide
Yep.
and Shout and things like that. That you think it's a good smell, but those chemicals are going through your body when you wear those clothes.
Yeah, like I just visited a place today, like a pool supply. Well, it has a lot of chemicals, and it will impact your cerebellum, mucosa lining, the microbiome, and then it impacts your brain lymphatic system and the detox and the lymphatics, and it all just backs up, So,
Yeah, you walk in and you can smell it
Oh, yeah.
immediately.
yeah, definitely. And those little Glade plug-ins, out, get rid of them.
What are they?
Glade plug-ins,
Oh,
those.
yeah.
Yeah, they're, I always tell people, the things that you could do that's the most is do your best to figure out how to get a good night's sleep, because when you get a good night's sleep, then your brain can repair, your body can repair, and that's just key. I even, Gary Greca, which he's you probably don't know his name often, but he's a biologist that used to help actuaries figure out, oh, this person's gonna live this long, and he could know by their actions that they did in their life how long they'd live. And he got, I think somewhere in 2020, he says, this is dumb, why don't I teach people how to live longer? And so he switched, and so you'll see a lot of YouTube, you'll see a lot of Instagram and Facebook, and he's talking about that. And that's one thing he says, you've got to get a good night's sleep. So that's why I did that whole sleep course, because I think that's really key. So that was one. I always take omega-3, because that helps your body be able to think better. Curcumin is probably the second one I would recommend, because that helps your body get rid of inflammation. And then the third one, I had it and then I forgot it. Let's see, would be to stop laundry detergent. All those detergents and any smells that you have in your house like that are just so toxic.
Yeah, I started using Norwex.
But yes, that's great. Yeah, that's another really good one. I usually recommend people do borax, OxyClean, Norwex is good. Any ones like Arm & Hammer, they still have issues. All detergent still has issues. I had and the thing I use my son all the time, but he had, when he was first born, I had everything washed in all detergent, that was no sentence like that. And he spit up 24/7. I mean, I was to the point where I'm like, why do we even buy baby clothes? We had them literally in onesies with a bib that was supposed to be for a 1-year-old, draped over the top because he spit up so much. And we found that, yes, he was bad on the laundry detergent, and I literally one weekend washed everything in my house. Sheets, towels, you name it, all of his clothes, and he stopped spitting out in 24 hours. Stopped. So, and I said, okay, why, what was he smelling? And I said, it is like him smelling diesel fuel right next to him, and
Yeah.
that's why he could not handle it. So, to me, that became a complete believer, you know, and so we just, we don't have any scent whatsoever in our house because of it. All right, ready?
Excellent. No, but I'll do this demonstration, then I'll show you the
Okay.
first part of the video.
All right, then I'll come back and do all the emotional stuff.
Good, because I need to go and cook this. That'll be,
And if you miss something, I said I could, come and I'll
Yeah.
give you the information.
oh, we have time, we have a lot of time. Anyway, what the recipe is, and I'm sorry for the dark copy. This is from the booklet that I use. I've used it a lot. And, anyway, it's toasted cheese sandwiches, and it is vegan. There's no dairy in it. And it's a staple in our household. We'll have it for a meal. We put the cheese on toast, healthy toast, good stuff, toasted, nice. Anyway,
What kind of bread was that? Ezekiel?
oh, Ezekiel 9:5, yeah, I've used that, yeah. 9:5 or 9:4. 9:4. It's available at Donaby. That was also started by the Advent. It's in charge of Ezekiel 9:4 bread. Little Debbie's. Who mentioned Little Debbie's? Okay, yeah, we know. Anyway, we'll do this one and then I can show a short video about the New Start idea and concept. And what this does, this is toasted cheese sandwiches. You take a cup of water. Put it in here. We've had this Vitamix because before we moved to Farmington. We got it when we were in Washington State, so it was about 2011 when I think we got this. But we've gone, this is the third thing that we've had at the top.
And you found your lid.
Well, yes. So it's a cup of water. And it's about, what does it say? Cashews. What does it say? I can't even read it here. 3/4 of a cup of cashews. And I did it all at home, so I don't have to do it here. And I usually use regular cashews that are toasted or roasted a little bit. Adds a little bit of flavor, but I also have mixed in here some raw cashews.
Those are unsalted, right?
That's right. That's right. And I'm putting oatmeal in here. Oatmeal helps to thicken it. And this is the spices. It's onion, garlic powder, onion powder, and salt. The measurements are right in here. And then I put in, that's all I got here. Yeah, oh my stars. Oh, lemon juice. Okay. Lemon juice. And then, I should put this in. About half a cup of pimento.
Get it on the floor.
Should have opened it when I was home. You want a little magic thing, you just put it around it. Okay, Guy, can you do it?
Well, probably,
Or maybe a woman can do it and show
Just
me up.
loosen it for
There
me
you
a
go.
little bit.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
did. I thought I listened to it quite a
Hit
bit.
it flat on the
I can't do it,
floor.
David can do it.
Hit it flat on the floor.
There you go.
Well, it's tight.
You got it.
Thank you. Yeah, just dump it in.
The whole thing?
Got
Bet
big
the whole
muscles
thing? You
in his
bet.
arm.
Wow.
Oh, not that much. Huh? No, that's, I'm kidding you. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. And then the last thing I put in, it says, I put lemon juice in, and it says, yeast flakes. There it is right here. 3 tablespoons of yeast flakes. This is nutritional yeast. This is what it'll look like at Dillon's. Smells good. The 3 tablespoons. 1, 2, and 3. And that's it. Doesn't that look good? Wait till it gets going. And I'm gonna take it over there and cook it. It needs to cook just to thicken it up. It thickens when you cook it with the only cooking it. So let me see if we can.
Are you just cooking in a saucepan or?
Yeah, I'm just gonna use a saucepan.
Okay.
Unless there's another type of pan.
Hmm?
You probably do it in here. You probably do it on this and do it on high for 5 or 10 minutes. That would heat it up. It'll be easier.
But could you just put it in the microwave for a little while?
Well, I guess you could, but you have to stir it, otherwise it's gonna
Oh.
burn. Okay, let me see what we got here now.
Microwaves also change kind of the molecular structure of food, and so a lot of people are really trying not to do it as much as possible.
Yeah.
On the microwave?
Yeah, no, that's not what I want. Okay. Again. Okay. If you wanna, yeah, if you wanna come up and do your thing again, I'll start this from the beginning when you're done, and I'll be able to get this cooked up and
Okay.
so forth. Okay? I do apologize. I'm looking for symptoms so people won't cry or something.
Get it to where it's supposed to be?
No, because I pushed the wrong button again.
Oh.
It's this fault.
Pepper.
Temporary, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and I'll get this, and I'll get the other one. So when you're done, I'll try to do this for you again.
All right, sounds good. So, I need to be about here. Okay, so again, I'm Jody Colgrove, and I'm a Christian holistic health practitioner, and I help you discover the exact toxins and pathogens that are creating your health symptoms, and I clear them in an instant, so you can transform your health. That's what I do. And it's amazing how many people go, I feel so much better just after one treatment, because their energy has been able to shift because I've gotten rid of those toxins, and they're able to think better and feel better and have more energy. And that's what I do. So on day one, we talked about, what are food sensitivities that really impact you, that, you didn't realize that, that's why I don't feel good after I eat, corn chips or Fritos, because they really are, not making you feel better. And they actually hurt your body. I also recommended some great books on how to discover what foods you are sensitive to and what causes health symptoms. And sometimes we have things that we've been advertised as being good, but are they really good for us? And so some of the books that I recommended, like Food, What the Heck Should We Eat? Like Dr. Mark Hyman talks about, what is it that we should be eating? And things like, tilapia is not a very good food, and then eating, let's say, a bowl of oatmeal for the morning, is that really healthy? And he finds that, it raises your blood sugar way too much and then lowers it. How we're using it here is we're using it as a thickener, so it's different because it's combined with other things. So he goes over some of those key foods that's really important. Like for example, dairy does dairy gives you calcium. Well, you can get more calcium in broccoli than you can dairy, but we've been taught that. So it's better to eat your broccoli than milk. Day two, we talked about remedies that will help you when you have a virus or a bacteria, or decrease inflammation, or get rid of a fungal infection. Helping have a microbiome balance, and dealing with parasites, and how exercise is so important, and then how to detox so that you are more healthy, and how that's important. So, in Matthew 22, verses 37 through 39, it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And, they've always said, okay, we hear that, but a lot of times, we're always giving so much and we never saying no and stuff like that. And so we don't have a lot of boundaries in our life. And so therefore people sometimes walk over us and we lose our energy because of giving so much to others. And so, as always, you have to love yourself, love your neighbor as yourself. So you have to love yourself first in order to give to others. Like almost have to fill your love tank before you can send it to others. Where this is demonstrated is like when you're on a plane and they say, okay, if the oxygen masks fall down, you put your oxygen mask on you first and then help your children. Because if you try to help your children, you're going to run out of air. And so it's that same idea, but we need to take care of ourselves so then we can take care of others. So what gets in the way of us doing that, of us taking care of ourselves? Well, a lot of times it can be things like getting over shame that we have in our life. If we have something that we feel like we didn't, do a very good job at, or that we should have done better at. Confusion, confusion or complexity is doesn't allow you to do it well. In other words, it gets in the way of getting something done. Everything is too complex. I'm having to learn a computer platform right now. It's like, wow. So it takes a lot of brain power. But that confusion can really lead to not doing anything. And that's why the two books I recommend are very simple at trying to help you understand health. Sometimes there's a lot of fear around health. In other words, what if something goes wrong or something like that? And so just recognizing, like you said, that the body is a whole organ and that, it's wanting to function well. We just have to give it really good data to be able, or food to be able to do that and not get things in the way. So the books I suggested are really helpful with that first step. So there's 3 big blocks to healing and how we move past them. So the first one is you have to love yourself, and God loved us, and so He's wanting us to love ourselves. When I first married my husband, I said, oh, okay, I was into herbs and health and exercise and like that. And I said, okay, well, here's some herbs that are really helpful for you. And he really had a hard time taking them. And it's like, they're herbs. I'm giving to you 2. They're just right here. Take them every morning. And it wasn't a lot of them, but he really was like blocked to taking them. Well, I found out through the modality that I do that he actually didn't love himself enough to want to give himself health. And so that was in the way of blocking him. So when we cleared that belief in him, he started taking herbs and started taking care of himself. And so I really noticed the change through the years that he's taking care of himself. The second one is that we have a lot of emotions, beliefs, vows, and what I call life commandments that sometimes get in the way. So let's say that you have the emotion of anger, fear, loneliness, overwhelm, rejection, sadness. Those are not going to be very helpful for healing. And so we have to identify that those emotions are getting in the way of our happiness in life or getting in the way of us wanting to achieve what we want to do. And so we have to recognize that we have that. There are certain organs that hold on to those kind of things. So like liver is anger. Gallbladder is how the gall of having someone do that. Bladder is being pissed off at somebody. So a lot of times, we hear these phrases and they do relate to the emotions that are being held. Lung is grief, I mentioned that. So just being aware that if we're angry, we're not going to heal very well. So we need to see what's getting in the way of that. Beliefs, things like, I'm not safe, I'm not enough, I deserve to suffer, I do not deserve God's blessing. I work with a lot of clients that's underlining their health issues is those beliefs. And so we find out what that is, what is tripping you up and not wanting you to be healthy. And so we find out what those are, and we clear that from not only your mind, but your body, because you may be holding on, and I've even found, we even go into the cells and find out if the cells are holding on to that. For years, my husband was holding on to the sense of failure, because he had failed at a job, and he was holding on to that, so he just like, well, everything I'm gonna fail at, and then I came along, you win. Another one is life commandments, and sometimes you can call this a blocking belief, or I guess a punishing belief, but they're life commandments, or they're things that you live by. So, if I control I can control the future by suffering now. That's a very strange one, but a lot of times if you have a headache, it's something you don't want to face, and so you have a headache because you want to avoid that. And so that's kind of an issue. If I suffer now, then I don't have to deal with that situation coming up, or deal with the lawsuit I have, or maybe having to go to court, or having to deal with my kids that are not doing well. So a lot of times we do have a illness that we take on, or in some ways emotionally embrace, so we don't have to deal with something. Maintain separation from God and others at all costs. I found this a lot in COVID, that because we were distancing, we were also distancing from God, and so I had to reset people and get them to realize that, you know, you don't have to live in fear. You can clear that and connect with God, and that He's safe and He loves you and He wants to take care of you. I was also finding that people's feet were not necessarily grounded to the earth. So it got all the beauty that God created. It's like they felt like they're just kind of floating. And so getting them to connect with the earth and the beauty and the glory that God had here helped them be able to heal, because they weren't just kind of like disconnected.
And this was during COVID?
Yeah. A lot of feet issues during COVID. Just numbness, tripping, a limp. I mean, just lots of feet issues.
Really?
Yeah. Another one is to avoid emotions, like talking about headaches or that way. Make the world a predictable place. In other words, if I'm sick all the time, then I know what I have to deal with. If I'm not sick and I go out into the big world, I don't know what I'm going to be hit with. So it's easier to say, okay, this is the box I'm going to put myself in that I know. I always love that illustration that, we all know the things that we have to deal with in life, and so we know that what we're good at, what we're bad at, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, what our frustrations are. Would you want to take that and put it in a brown paper bag and throw it in a pile of all these other brown paper bags of their stuff and pick up a new one? That'd be kind of a scary issue. If you think about it, you know what your issues are, and you found a way to kind of dodge and weave around it. And that's the idea here, is that, sometimes that is a comfortable box that we live in, but that may not be serving us as good as we should. So just kind of be aware of that. It could be, a life commandment would be to be understood. Some people don't feel like anybody's listening to them. And so if they have a health issue, then they can be heard, they can be cared about, they can be nurtured or taken care of, because somebody is there to always take care of them because they're sick. A way to escape, it's another one. Escape the world and what they have to deal with. To avoid judgment from self, others, and God. Kind of that same idea. To distract oneself so they don't have to deal with, let's say life. If you are distracted by an illness, then you can't go out and make a living, so therefore you don't have to deal with other people or the world that may be difficult. To be hyper vigilant. Sometimes it's like, well, again, that whole world I don't want to deal with, but if I'm hyper vigilant here, then that keeps all my time, so I don't have to deal with that. So those are life commandments that I just give just a sample of things that I've dealt with clients and having to clear. Vows are things like, I will never forgive or allow myself to be hurt again. And so sometimes we will do things or have health issues to prevent that. I will not show emotion, and so being really strong and sturdy and not letting anything get to us, that could be an issue too, because then you're not connecting with others, or you're not allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to be loved and appreciated. So we've talked about some emotions, beliefs that get in the way. The third thing is dealing with motivation, like trying to get my husband motivated to hey, I want to take care of myself. And so one way that people talk about that I have found to be helpful is to what they call habit stacking. So if you really wanna do something, like, I wanna take this herb in the morning, but I have a hard time remembering it. Say, okay, when I wake up, I always go and get a glass of water. Okay, well then, that night before, have that herb sitting right there next to the glass, so when you take a glass of water, you take the herb at the same time. So you're habit stacking two things together. If you have lunch and I really wanna read, then after you have lunch, then read a book, and put the book out right next to, the fork, or underneath the fork, and that's habit stacking, so you can make sure that what you're wanting to achieve, you're putting it together with something and they're linked together. Like walking after dinner, those two things go together. Another one is boundaries with others and the ability to say no, and I kind of touched on that. If you don't have really good boundaries, then you tend to be more susceptible to getting parasites and tick bites, and Lyme disease and things like that. So it's one of those, or having EMF, which is electromagnetic frequencies that are bothering your body. So that's usually a loss of boundaries.
Okay, what do you mean by boundaries?
So boundaries would be the ability to say no. It's like, no, I can't be obligated to do that, or no, I can't come this weekend and do such and such because I'm busy with my family. So the ability to say no when you know what you need to do instead of just always
Okay,
going
I've
have
learned to do that, but if you don't have boundaries, then you're more susceptible to tick bites?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, tick bites and
Like,
EMF
and
fields.
poison ivy and,
I wouldn't know sure if poison ivy really falls in that. Sometimes poison ivy can be a generational issue. Also, no, I was gonna say it could be a skin issue, a digestive thing, but no, it's usually a generational issue if you get a lot.
it's usually boundaries
Mhm.
can cause ticks.
Well, because in other words, you don't, where your skin is where you have this, this is me and that's you. And so if you don't have strong boundaries and you let people walk on you, or you just, say, yeah, I'll do that, yes, then it's like you don't have that boundary for that tick to come in, land on your skin and get underneath your skin. So, it's one of the things we found.
So worrying about or being concerned about EMFs can cause boundary issues?
Not
and-
so much that way. In other
Okay.
words, it will make you more susceptible to them. So if you don't have boundaries, in other words, it may impact you more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things you can do to help with EMF sensitivity. You can wear pendants.
I've
that-
wondered about
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
Because
You do-
I'm like,
What
oh.
did you say?
EMF, which is electromagnetic frequencies, that if you don't have boundaries, you can be more
Wi-Fi.
susceptible to it. Wi-Fi and things
Cell
like that.
phones. And,
Cell phones. And so my cell phone has a sticker on it that helps not allow the waves of the cell phone to impact my brain. This is a pendant that you can wear. This is shikimite out of Russia, which is a kind of stone that helps with EMF.
So what kind of sticker do you have on your phone?
It's called an EMF sticker. You can get them. Some work better than others, and so there's certain ones that I recommend. But there's a sticker that you can put on your phone so that you don't get the radiation from the phone. And you can, sometimes people have smart meters. I'm not sure if they're really a thing yet in this area, but you can put stickers on the smart meter so that they don't impact the house and get too much like EMF.
like your Wi-Fi.
So,
You don't want to be in the same room.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
or like if you're at work and you have all of this stuff, your computer and all of that. I don't know, it freaks me out.
Some people
I'm so
feel it where they're
nervous about it.
Yeah, some people get headaches.
Yeah.
They can
Or
be
they
really
actually
sick.
can feel the
Yeah.
vibration.
Yeah,
It's, yeah.
really sick.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a couple good books on boundaries that, if that's an issue. One of the classic is, by, it's called Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend. It was a series that went around to lots of churches and they would watch it all together. It was profound.
Cloud and Townsend.
I think you can find them on the internet too, but I don't know if they work together as much, but it's a really good book.
And what was it called?
Boundaries.
Boundaries.
Yeah. But yeah, it really helped me in my marriage because it said if you always step in other words, if someone does something and you're always stepping in to like protect them, then they never reap what they sow. And God says you reap what you sow. And so if you continue to do that, they'll never learn. So you have to kind of say, okay, so I had to say, okay, if you're not going to take an herb, to my husband, then you're going to suffer the consequences. And
You have to learn tough love.
you do, yeah. And that's what boundaries is about. Another most recent one is called Good Boundaries and Goodbyes. And that is by Lisa Turkhurst. And I can spell it if you need. But she's a Christian author that has written lots of good books, and that's a good one. Stress, anxiety, and trauma create a physical and a non-physical response in the body. Trauma overwhelms the nervous system and its capacity to process the experience. So you actually have pieces of that experience left unprocessed, frozen behind in the brain and the body. And anytime a flow of energy goes through those areas again, that person will experience a symptom. So I had this a lot when I was first working and had a pager. And so anytime a problem happened, my pager would go off and I would just be like, because I know, oh no, what does people need? And it's that same kind of a hit that you get. Another example I use is, let's say that you've been in a car accident on a certain area of the highway. When you drive there, you usually kind of tense up. Like, oh, I remember what that felt like, and that semi coming to me, and I did a 360, and oh, I remember that, and you're getting through that. That's that emotion that's still stuck in all the mind, body, going through that area. And so what we do is I work on any traumas that you have, clearing that memory and that physical response and how it's left over in your brain and body so you don't have it there anymore. So you can literally drive down the road, yep, that's the road, not a big deal. And so I can send you that trauma video. I have several of them that you can see, but I also, a lot of times, several times a year, I do a trauma release technique by Zoom, one of those free Zooms I was talking about. So what does God say about your body, health, and your worth? What I love about the Adventist Church is it talks about the fact that it's a connection between mind, body, and spirit. And so all of those need to be in balance and connection. And a lot of times in Loma Linda, there's doctors that will come to your your hospital room, and before you have surgery, they'll actually pray with you. And so they're putting you in a loving state, knowing that you're taken care of and loved as you go through this, whatever surgery you have to go through. So it's a very mind, body, spirit, and you realize that spirit needs to be asked into that area. So what's important is to create a very doable plan that fits for your life. And so we've talked about habit stacking, we've talked about clearing any blocks that you have. So one activity, so I would ask you to think about one activity that you can add to your life, like walking after dinner, or taking curcumin, or working on trying to go to bed maybe an hour earlier, or keeping your cell phones way from where you sleep, so you're not getting that EMF, or don't check it first thing in the morning. But think of one of those habits that you really want to add to your life. And I always say, write it and put it on your mirror, and that way every time you get ready in the morning, you see it, and so you're constantly reviewing. Yeah, that's what I want to do. And then do one change that you're wanting. So one thing you want to add, and one thing you want to change or take away. So that may be stopping eating non-organic grains, and so you're not getting that GMO that I talked about, which is so damaging for the brain. So the takeaway is that I want you to be excited and ready to make health a priority in your life, because it really is fun and you feel like, hey, I did a good job. When you're really trying to add those things back in your life that make you feel better. And I talked about already about 3 things that you could do is to change, make one change that you're going to do to help you be healthy, repeat it to yourself, put it on the mirror, habit stack it, with something else that you naturally do every day. So that's one thing. The second thing is to, add a supplement that will really be helpful. When I mentioned about omega-3, make sure you take 2 a day, because omega-3 sometimes you buy them in the store, they're not enough of what you need, so you at least need 2 a day. Curcumin.
What's omega-3?
Omega-3, those are things like fish oils, you usually see it as omega-3. We
Oh,
talked
or
about
like
that.
CoQ10?
No,
No,
that-
that's not
something different.
omega-3.
No.
So it's fish oils,
It's fish
olive
oils.
oil.
Yes, typically you buy it in an herb form that's usually, krill oil or, fish oil is
Okay.
omega-3. It's usually the best form of
Those big
omega-3.
capsules.
Yep, they usually
Krill
take
oil.
it.
They don't taste very good.
No, you don't, yeah, but they're good for you. And then about the beliefs and the life vows and life commandments, I always say journal, pray, find out what is, and ask God, what is it that is keep tripping me up in this area of maybe health or what I want to achieve? And I find when you do that, that really does help release that, and I do a lot of things that help, but that is something that you can do on your own to really find out what is that that's keeping you stuck. All right. So, and I went over all the other stuff to how to get a hold of me. So we're good. Are you ready?
Yeah, we got food over here,
Okay.
let you help yourself. The crackers out here, and this is,